Story 1. A young death is most likely due to heart issues or suicide, which are the most common causes of death for men until age 50, when suicide is replaced by cancer. Option 3 is work or accident-related. Story 2. I would say societal pressures are not inherently scary, but they can be exhausting. As a man, you are expected to meet a long list of silent expectations, often without being taught how. You are expected to provide and achieve financial success quickly. You are expected to hide your emotions and remain stoic, no matter what you are feeling. You are expected to be strong physically, emotionally, socially, and always confident. You are expected to be sexually experienced, knowledgeable, and assertive. You are expected to suppress interests that do not fit traditional masculinity. You are expected to become a wise father, a role model, and leave behind a legacy. You are expected to lead, take risks, and never fear rejection or failure. Your worth is often measured by your productivity and external achievements. You are rarely encouraged to seek help or build emotionally supportive friendships. These expectations are not inherently wrong, but when unspoken and unchecked, they can isolate men and make authenticity feel like weakness. Story 3. Worrying about literally fighting someone is serious. There are some men who can really hurt you. Do not think all men are friendly. Some can and will cause harm if you look at them the wrong way. Story 4. There is a constant attack on our self-esteem from grifters whose entire tactic is to make us doubt we are real men. They then tell us it is the fault of feminists and minorities, slowly brainwashing us into hateful individuals who alienate all our friends and family and spend money on overpriced products from grifters. I see this happening with my own brother, and I am scared and unsure how to stop it. Story 5. I guess it's that almost no one takes your issues seriously. Almost no one listens when something is wrong with you. Story 6. Nothing much, but being perceived as a potential threat while walking around thinking about blueberry muffins feels strange. Story 7. The hardest part about being a man is that most of the time you are alone. You are the one expected to fix everything. No room to fail, no space to fear, no permission to break. Because you are the pillar of your home, your wife, your children. There are days when it feels like you cannot go on. When life has brought you to your knees, but you cannot show pain or weakness because there is no place for that in the role the world expects you to play. Story 8. Watching the world's outrage over Boko Haram kidnapping 270 girls, and contrasting it with absolutely zero reaction when they had murdered more than 5,000 boys. No hashtag, United Nations speeches, social media campaigns, or press outrage. They did not kidnap those boys. They burned them alive. This made me realize the disposability of the male sex extends to children. You can literally burn little boys alive for years by the thousand, and nobody particularly minds. The exclusively male victims of their attacks were labeled students, never boys. It was in the news for years but never in the headlines. Nobody really cared until the gender swapped. Story 9. There is zero support for most men. Even the people we care about and who supposedly care about us expect us to just deal with everything stoically and without a fuss. I have been at the very edge of my mental health, and it is extremely lonely. Story 10. Ask Nora Vincent. She had a difficult time proving herself wrong about how easy being a male truly is. Story 11. Unlike a woman, a man cannot approach a random child, especially a little girl. Let me give you an example. This happened to me last year. I was at an outdoor art festival, and there was a stage with a local band playing. Next to us was a family with a little girl, maybe 10 or so, who was singing along. Her voice was incredible. I walked over to tell her what an amazing voice she had. As I leaned down to talk to her, the mother yelled, "Get away from her, you pervert!" Before I knew it, I was tackled and about to be beaten up. Luckily, a police officer happened to be walking by and intervened. I had to answer many questions and convince everyone of my intentions. When it was all said and done, if looks could kill. Yeah, I don't blame the mother. I understand why. We live in a messed up world. Story 12. Being expected to stay strong and silent no matter what you are going through, with no one noticing until you break. Story 13. constant threat of violence, or that retaliation could result in another person's death or imprisonment. Being acutely aware that your presence may be intimidating or perceived as a threat if you are walking in a quiet area and there is only one woman on the same path. Cross the road if you can to show that you are minding your own business and have no intention of bothering her. Knowing I will die younger than I would like. Story 14. At any time, someone can accuse you of something really bad, and people will instantly believe it without any level of proof, even if you are proven to be innocent. Being forced to go to war and die for a country that would not lift a single finger to save your life. Story 15. One thing that annoys me about being male is that people automatically expect you to know how to do traditionally masculine jobs. For example, I have had people ask me if I knew how to fix their car. I know enough to keep my car running, but I told her that I don't know enough to help her. Sorry. The look I received said that if you are mechanically useless, you are probably useless in every other aspect of life. I would like to point out that it is not just women who do this. Some men do it too. If you don't know their trade, or if you do not have any traditionally masculine interests, they look down on you. People have asked if I am gay before because I said I find football generally quite boring. It feels like a common occurrence that if you are male and do not fit into a very stereotypical box of male traits, then you are automatically considered less of a man. Story 16. The realization that I am going to die alone, I suppose. However, I think I have slowly come to accept it. I guess it is not that scary. Story 17. For some reason, everyone assumes I should know what to do to fix anything because I am the oldest male present. Story 18. Men cannot express what they are feeling inside. They always have to pretend to appear strong on the outside, and that is something sad. Story 19. Trying to do anything without being judged under someone else's opinion on what a man should be. I have confidence, a large iced coffee, and I am on my way to do a job you are physically incapable of. Story 20. Just that general grinding feeling that as a man, you are on probation in the United States right now even though you have not committed a crime. Story 21. Having to constantly provide without any recognition, and when you are at your lowest, all you get is grief for being miserable. You contemplate leaving the world, then you chat with your good friend who understands you, and things look better. Except you are fooling yourself. Story 22. No one is coming to your rescue, ever. You are on your own until the day you die. This is a fact of life that all men must accept on their journey to success. I will never forget the time I was stuck in an unknown city for much longer than I had to be. My phone died. I couldn't call a rideshare. I couldn't do anything. Everyone I pleaded to for help ignored me. I would have gladly bought one of those USB chargers. Those little power banks always ship with a decent charge out of the box. But the city I was in, you couldn't find anything like that. And asking for help, everyone avoided me. I was basically temporarily abandoned by society. I had to wave a police officer down and beg for help. Even he almost looked like he did not want to bother. He let me use his charger for a bit, and I was able to quickly call a rideshare to get me out of there. Such an eye-opening experience, life as a man. Story 23. Crossing the street to make a woman feel safer, but finding another woman on the other side. Sometimes I have to walk in the middle of the road. Story 24. The intense fear you feel every time you sit down for weeks after accidentally injuring your testicles. Story 25. Too much testosterone at a young age. We box and play football, giving ourselves brain trauma before the age of 25. Story 26. Always expecting more of yourself while simultaneously lacking the energy to do the things you know you need to. Story 27. Speaking as someone suffering from complex post-traumatic stress disorder, it is the fact that nobody takes men's mental health seriously, even when you yourself are seeing a therapist and trying hard to deal with many of the demons in your head. Story 28. The scariest thing about being a man, I would say, Franz Kafka in The Metamorphosis describes that a man's identity is often linked to the usefulness he can provide to his environment, family, or society. Finding our identity and feeling good about ourselves without depending on what job or studies we have, I think, is the most difficult thing about being a man. Story 29. Eye contact. Among males, the slightest bit of wrong eye contact can trigger a defensive and antagonistic reaction, as if they are ready to start a fight. This occurs only between men and other men, not between men and women, nor between women and other women. I am not referring to someone catching you staring. I mean an accidental peripheral eye lock. Looking into another male's peripheral vision can quickly lead to an antagonistic encounter. I say this sincerely. It is exactly the same as staring the wrong way at a dog or a chimp. It is perceived as a threat. I am tired of having to control where I look because some man might accidentally think I am staring him down and start a fight. It is taken as a challenge, and men become very edgy when they believe they are being challenged by another man. I might be looking past them or looking in their general direction, and it does nothing but anger them. I have to adopt a calm, neutral facial expression to avoid conflict, simply to prevent being attacked by other men who might think I am staring at them. Men, I would choose the bear. You are neither fun nor safe to be around. Story 30. Never getting a girl to really like you. Aside from your appearance, there are many factors beyond your control that influence this. Story 31. That just smiling or glancing in the general direction of a child or a woman can make people convinced you are a predator. However, not everyone will automatically think that. There is a chance, but you do not know if or when it will happen. If it does, there is no limit to how far and fast things can escalate. Story 32. People assume you are by default capable of violence and even committing rape, but there is no way you are the victim of either of those. Story 33. Letting down everyone who has ever sacrificed for you when you cannot accomplish the greatness they saw in you. Story 34. Permanent presumption of guilt. If a conflict involves a male and a female, society will usually support the female. Story 35. Everyone sees you as a predator. You really have to watch your back and make sure you are not alone one-on-one with anyone. It is not easy to avoid looking at other males the same way sometimes. Story 36. Having to listen to the perpetual victimhood that many of your male peers seem to have. The moment you try to rationalize with them, they say, "No, it's just because I'm a man. It's so hard to be a man. Nobody likes me." Then they start blaming women for all their troubles instead of trying to improve. Guess what, guys? Women are lonely too. I'm not allowed to have emotions. I'm expected to be stoic and strong all the time. No, this is false. Some people still live in that archaic mindset, but it is not the norm anymore. Break free from this prison you've allowed society to put you in. Story 37. Having to watch unskilled, lazy women parade around the workplace like gods of creation while complaining they get paid less. At the same time, you work harder for the same wage but are held to actual standards that would break these women in a week if fairly imposed. The crowning irony is that if you say a word about this, you are branded a misogynistic pig, and your career is over. Story 38. Worrying if I look too intimidating walking down the street. I am 6 feet 2 inches tall and super tan. I always feel like people are scared of me. Story 39. I have to provide for 2 children and a partner, where buying the cheapest house plus bills will take up my entire paycheck. Story 40. It can lead to bullying and abuse if you do not identify with typical male characteristics or worse, do not identify as a man at all. Story 41. I have never really thought there is anything scary about being male personally. It is not something I often think about. Story 42. Never being loved unconditionally, only being loved based on what we provide for others. Story 43. Different women recount exciting sexual experiences with other men outside by the floodlit lookout and the thrill of a threesome, but they never want to have sex with me. Story 44. When you are at the public pool in the changing room and there are older men completely naked while you are still in elementary school. Story 45. Probably, no matter how many times you achieve climax, you will always feel the urge to do it again. It is a never-ending cycle. They say doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, is the definition of insanity. Story 46. I've been on buses and at bars where guys openly threatened me when I was alone. This also happened to me when I would go to fairgrounds. There are just some places where people are looking to start a fight, and not a fair one. There is something about problematic individuals that, when they outnumber someone, they become about 20 times tougher. I took martial arts though, so I wasn't really afraid, but it certainly bothered me that people like that exist. Story 47. Mostly? 1. Social isolation and distrust. 2. Being overwhelmingly more likely to experience public and/or stranger violence. The vast majority of assaults and homicides are against males. Come to think of it, just 2 weeks ago in a wealthy neighborhood, I saw a man beat another man after thinking he was a gay pedophile. There are children around here, you cannot do that. To be honest, the other man was fully clothed, so it was either one crazy person or two crazy people, but there was a vicious, uncalled for assault. Women are more vulnerable but seldom spark the rage and aggression of a fellow male. Have I been assaulted? Let's see. Mugged by one man, sucker punched by two men, and lightly assaulted once by a small woman who was drunk and unstable. Perpetrators are mostly men, but victims are mostly men as well. Story 48. You can be forced to fight a war at the whims of people who would never step foot on a battlefield. Story 49. This is probably the best response I have ever received to a provocative comment. Scientifically logical and well-reasoned. I wish the rest of Reddit were like you. Story 50. That I'm a bad person and no one will ever love me, including my wife and kids. That's a significant issue. Other than that, everything is fine when you are a man. Yes, I will check out that noise in the dark. I will move the spider that is upsetting you. I will squash the mouse. I will chase off the coyote. I will confront that person. I will defend us against hostile threats. Mostly, I am afraid that I am unloved and unwanted. I can physically defend myself any day of the week. It is mostly emotional issues. Story 51. The lack of emotional freedom I have is difficult to express. I cannot speak for others, only for myself. In my nearly 16 years of life, many people have told me that men should not feel emotionally pressured by others to act as a real man should, and that it is okay to express emotions like everyone else. However, it has become almost like muscle memory not to cry around others. I was never told that crying made me look weak, but it unknowingly became a lingering idea that turned into an unwanted habit. Even when my dog was dying, I cried openly only about 12 years ago in front of my family, but as soon as I went back to my room and closed the door, tears streamed down my face like rivers. I have never cried at school since I was 10 years old. That is 6 years without crying in public. Yet, when I am at home, alone in my room, I have cried hundreds of times in that same period. It is honestly upsetting that men, as both a gender and a generalization, face this much emotional pressure. When women face any kind of pressure, they often see men as the bad guys. Women have much more emotional freedom than they realize. They can comfort their friends and wear their emotions openly without criticism. While women have less physical freedom than men, they have greater emotional freedom, whereas for men, the opposite is true. If society as a whole would accept this fact, I believe people might get along better. However, whenever I try to discuss this, I am often told to be quiet, and my thoughts are dismissed as playing the victim because women supposedly have it worse than men. This was said to me by both of my sisters and by various strangers on social media. Story 52. People tell you that gender norms need to be broken, but when you cannot meet those norms, they buckle down. Story 53. The way many men go through life being loved conditionally without knowing is concerning. Many men I know were abandoned simply because they lost a job, got injured, or faced a common challenge. As a man, it frightens me to realize that anyone in my life could be a parasite. If you question anyone around you, you are told it is a problem. Story 54. The pressure to always provide and be successful for you and your family. I have not seen this mentioned yet, but I will say the fear of being labeled as a predator or something similar. If you are friendly to the wrong person or someone not involved thinks it is creepy, it is very easy for your reputation to be ruined without having done anything wrong. Story 55. You could end up fighting in a war at any moment that you do not believe in, and that could kill you because of political stupidity. Story 56. You are public enemy number one in modern-day Western society. No one is coming to help you either. You are alone and have to deal with it. Otherwise, everyone sees you as weak and worthless. Story 57. Every gender norm for a man is unfair, based solely on the title of being a manly man. It is a scam and, honestly, sometimes has real sexist undertones, such as the expectation that a man must pay for everything. Story 58. I would say realistically it is being the one who has to pursue and lead in dating while not having the support system that women have. I feel like women go to more bachelorette parties and weddings in one summer than I would be invited to in my adult life outside of family. I will not dispute that as men we have it easier physically, but I think it is perfectly fair to say that women have it easier emotionally. Story 59. You are automatically flagged in court for having a divorce. Additionally, you are expected to overreact when you know it is a serious consequence. Story 60. Being on the receiving end of crime and violence statistics and how horrible we are according to women when you are entirely innocent. Story 61. Not to sound arrogant, but being envied by other men, whether for status, a woman, or a random petty altercation, can make some men very passionate. People often discuss our competitive nature, but not deep-rooted envy. I have kept loose tabs on a few individuals from my past, simply because I truly believe they would love to kill me. I would not consider this paranoia or speculation, as I do not lose sleep over it. Once you have received the look from someone unhinged, you know what is happening. It is as if they are trying to cave your head in with their eyes. Story 62. If I do not get money, I will not be able to provide for my family when I have one. I do not know. This just scares me. I want to have a family so badly. Story 63. If someone falsely convicts you of a crime, especially one involving assault, you may have to prove your innocence rather than the accuser having to prove your guilt. Story 64. A woman can say whatever she wants about you, and she will be believed over you. Several years ago, I would have completely agreed with the idea that a woman needs to be believed on her word. The argument would be that if you don't do anything wrong, then a woman won't say anything bad. Unfortunately, that is not how the world works. There are bad women just like there are bad men. I know many women who have been treated terribly by men, but I have also had a woman lie about me and my behavior. There was literally nothing I could do to refute what happened because no one else was there, besides me and her. I found myself in a situation where I knew I had done nothing wrong, but because she was female, her word was taken over mine. There is still this assumption that women are innocent victims, and I am afraid that is not always the case. Unfortunately, this damages the credibility of genuine victims. People simply cannot be believed just on their word. It opens up the possibility of being blamed for things they have not done. It is a difficult legal quandary, but after being in that situation, I can honestly say women lie, and I think that is a pretty obvious conclusion. Story 65. Honestly, how devastating a false allegation can be is something a woman will never have to deal with. I saw that play out firsthand with a friend who had an angry ex. It was not fun. I am quite happy my single years mostly predate online dating and all the associated problems. Story 66. There is a lot of self-pity in the comments. As a man, I can say with confidence that most of these issues are either not that serious, self-inflicted, or happen regardless of gender. The scariest part of being male is knowing how men really talk when women are not around. Story 67. Being wrongfully accused of sexual misconduct or worse. I work in a female-dominated industry with very young children as a preschool teacher. I maintain my best behavior at all times, but I still worry that someone might accuse me of doing or saying something inappropriate, despite the cameras everywhere and being fired or worse. I cannot spend more than 5 minutes in an infant room before receiving a call or email asking who the man in the room is. I have worked here for 2 years, have my own children, and passed the same background check as the female employees. Story 68. The idea that one day our perception of our own superiority will be proven false, and we will be treated by the world as we have treated them. Story 69. Having women try to dictate our behavior constantly is frustrating. Women shout and scream when in a bad mood, but if I raise my voice, I'm scaring people. Being told that liking sports and drinking with friends is toxic male behavior is unacceptable. Story 70. Knowing that at any moment another man could cross my path with angry intent. I can handle myself against some, but at my age most would certainly get the best of me. Life over or altered forever in an instant. Story 71. Nobody believes you when you feel like you are being abused. I left her, but I remember one time we were arguing about her taking my money while I was asleep and spending $150 on lunch with her friend at a lounge. It got out of hand. I told her I would call the police, and she said she would tell them I threatened her. In that moment, I realized how in danger I really was. Another time, she threw a mug at the back of my head when I was walking away while she screamed at me. After I broke up with her, she told all of our mutual friends that I abused her, and they believed her. She said she would do that if I left her, so I was not surprised. I was surprised that, despite the kind of person I am and how well they knew me, they still believed her. They were surprised that I was like that, but believed it anyway. I am someone who fights for women's empowerment, people of color, and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex and asexual communities, as well as many other minority groups. I have never laid a hand on anyone without it being self-defense, and even then, far less than what they did to me, just enough to create space. I have never laid a hand on a partner, not even her. There were times when the thought crossed my mind, which is why I knew I needed to leave. I was being pushed past a breaking point. Since then, I have had a mental health crisis that landed me in the hospital with therapy, where I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and severe panic disorder. The therapist told me it was a result of abuse, which I never believed to be true until they said it. Being a man doesn't always suck. In fact, there are many ways I am privileged, but this was a moment when I was so scared of being myself and felt smaller than the palm of her hand, simply because I was a man and she knew people would never believe me. Story 72. About being a male or a man. If the question was, what is the scariest thing about being a man? It could have been answered differently. But when it is stated that way, the truth is nothing is scary about being a male. You can live like a rat male or grow and become a male millionaire, for example. It is all about perspectives. Story 73. The violence that some males are capable of is unprovoked. I do not refer to violence in self-defense, but predatory violence. Human men are capable of more violence than any animal that has ever walked the earth, and 99% of the time, the violence occurs because they do not know how to deal with their own problems. They lash out at others, inflicting as much harm as possible in an attempt to feel better. It never works, and it never will. Story 74. Told my mom I feel lost and nothing really gives me purpose. She replied, then you can grab a rope and end it or be a man and stand your ground. To this day, I believe she did not mean it in a bad way. But goddamn, I will never forget that moment. Story 75. Societal pressures. All it takes is one dishonest woman to ruin your life by falsely accusing you of something that never happened. Unfortunately, the justice system sometimes sides with women, and the least that could happen is damage to your reputation. Story 76. There is not an active military draft, so nothing restricts you. The world is your oyster and always has been. Men still make more money and have access to more credit. Women could not even open a bank account in their own name in America until the 1970s. The vast majority of medical research has been male-centric. The criminal justice system was made by white men for white men. Car seats are designed for a 5 feet 10 inches man. Basically, everything public is designed for the average male size. Women make up only 28% of the 119th United States Congress. A woman still has not been elected president, and only one woman has ever been vice president, which only happened in the last decade. You will not die in childbirth. When you age, society says you look distinguished and are a silver fox. But the same is not true for women. I could continue all day. In summary, the scariest thing about being a male is never being emotionally mature enough to acknowledge your privilege in every realm of society and life, and to genuinely believe that you did not have any advantage. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.